The waters of the Sea of Galilee have turned the color of blood. Cameras captured waves stained crimson, spreading across the very lake where Jesus once walked. Scientists rushed to explain it, but the world saw something more, a scene straight from Scripture. This is no forgotten pond. This is Galilee, where storms once obeyed a single word and where faith was tested on the waves. Now, the same waters shimmer in red, raising a question that can no longer be ignored. Is this a natural quirk or a prophetic warning written on the living waters of the Bible's most sacred lake? It began quietly, a ripple across the Sea of Galilee, a glimmer under the sun. But as the light shifted, the water revealed a sight that left tourists speechless. Crimson waves rolling across a lake woven into the very story of the gospel. Phones filmed, prayers whispered, and the questions spread like fire. Why here? Why now? The scientists say algae. The scriptures say judgment. The truth? That depends on whether you believe the world is still speaking in signs. And if it is, then perhaps Galilee just shouted the loudest. The Bible warned of it, waters turning to blood, rivers drying, creation itself crying out before the end. And now, the Sea of Galilee, the very place where Christ calmed storms and called his disciples, has turned red. Witnesses stood in silence as waves glowed like wine in a chalice. Some call it science, others call it prophecy. But one thing is certain, this is no ordinary lake, and this is no ordinary moment. Could the crimson waters of Galilee be the trumpet blast the Bible spoke of, a warning that the time is closer than we think? The waters of the Sea of Galilee have turned the color of blood. Tourists and locals stood frozen, their eyes fixed on crimson waves rolling across the same lake where Jesus once walked. Cameras captured the sight, and within hours, the images spread across the world. Waves glowing red beneath the sun, as if the water itself had been transformed into a living prophecy. Scientists rushed to explain it away, but the Bible tells us this place is no ordinary lake. This is where storms bowed to a single command, where faith was tested on the waves. Now, Galilee bleeds red, leaving one haunting question echoing in every heart. Is this a rare accident of nature or a divine warning meant for our generation? It began with whispers along the shore. The Sea of Galilee, so often calm and familiar, suddenly shimmered with an unsettling hue. In the late afternoon light, its waters no longer glowed blue, but crimson, as if the lake itself had been wounded. Tourists froze mid-step, phones lifted with trembling hands. Some whispered prayers, others simply stared, unable to decide if the sight was beautiful or terrifying. This was no ordinary body of water. This was Galilee, the lake where storms once obeyed a single word, where faith was tested on the waves. Now, Galilee bleeds red, leaving one haunting question echoing in every heart. Is this a rare accident of nature or a divine warning meant for our generation? As news spread, experts stepped forward to calm the storm of speculation. Marine biologists identified the culprit, Botryococcus broni, a rare microscopic algae long known to scientists, but rarely seen in such dramatic abundance. Under normal conditions, it remains invisible, blending quietly into the ecosystem. But when temperatures rise, when waters grow still, and when nutrients accumulate, this algae can erupt into what is called a bloom. And when it blooms, it bleeds red. In some lakes across the world, such phenomena are known. Yet in Galilee, a freshwater lake constantly refreshed by tributaries, such an outbreak is almost unheard of. The historical record offers no precedent of this scale. Adding to the concern, Israel's drought has pressed the lake to its limits. Falling water levels, intensified sunlight, and agricultural runoff have created the exact stress conditions this algae requires. Officials even announced plans to pump desalinated Mediterranean water into Galilee to counteract the crisis, a measure never before considered necessary. So yes, science can explain the crimson waves. It can map the pigments, chart the nutrients, and measure the bloom. But what science cannot answer is the question lingering over the shoreline. Why this lake, the very one tied to Christ's ministry? Why now, in a moment when so many eyes are already searching for signs?
For those standing on the shore, the red waves stirred more than curiosity. They stirred memory, ancient words echoing through time. This was not the first time water had taken on the color of blood. In the book of Exodus, Moses and Aaron stretched out their hands over the Nile, and its waters turned to blood. Fish died, the river stank, and Egypt's lifeline was cut off in a single stroke. It was not a quirk of nature, it was a divine warning. Defy the living God, and judgment will follow. Centuries later, the Apostle John, exiled on the island of Patmos, saw visions of a time when all nations would face such signs. In Revelation 16, he wrote, "The second angel poured out his bowl into the sea, and it became like the blood of a corpse. The third angel poured out his bowl into the rivers and springs of water, and they became blood." To John, red waters were not a natural bloom, they were the very canvas of judgment. And so, the crimson Sea of Galilee draws us into a prophetic tension. Science says algae, Scripture whispers warning. One speaks of cause, the other of meaning. And when the two collide, a haunting question emerges. Are these waters telling us something that the world is too busy to hear? Blood has always spoken louder than words. It is the symbol of life, but also the mark of judgment. When rivers or seas run red, it feels as though creation itself is sounding an alarm. The color stirs something primal, warning, urgency, even fear. And here, in Galilee, the symbolism deepens. This is not the Nile of Egypt, nor some hidden lake in a wilderness. This is the water that bore Christ's ministry. Here, storms bent at his command. Here, Peter's faith faltered and was restored on the waves. Here, fish multiplied and nets overflowed. Galilee is not just geography, it is testimony. Now imagine those same waters, once a stage of miracles, stained crimson like aged wine. The contrast is jarring. A place once tied to abundance now mirrors imagery of warning. Could it be that the water itself is testifying again, only this time not of provision, but of urgency? The prophets often described creation as God's messenger. The sun stood still in Joshua's day. Darkness fell at Calvary. Even the rocks, Jesus said, would cry out if his disciples were silent. Perhaps Galilee is crying out now, its waves painted red to awaken a sleeping world. The question lingers like the crimson foam dissolving at the shore. If this is a sign, who is it meant for? The Sea of Galilee is not the only water speaking. Across the Middle East, another river groans, the Euphrates. Once a mighty artery of life, it now runs shallow, fractured into pools and cracked mud. Satellite images reveal what once seemed impossible. The very river mentioned in Revelation 16:12, drying to prepare the way for kings from the east. For centuries, this was dismissed as symbolic. Today, it is visible to the naked eye. The earth itself seems restless. Earthquakes rumble with growing frequency, striking remote ridges and crowded cities alike. Jesus warned in Matthew 24 that quakes in various places would mark the beginning of birth pains, reminders that creation itself groans for redemption. Even the skies have joined the chorus. From Jerusalem to New York, people report hearing trumpet-like blasts, deep, resonant sounds that science struggles to explain. Pressure shifts, industrial echoes, seismic resonance, explanations abound, yet the timing feels uncanny. And then there is the spectacle of the heavens. The aurora borealis, once confined to the Arctic, now paints the skies over nations far south. Curtains of green and crimson light ripple like cosmic warnings across regions unaccustomed to such displays. Luke 21:25 promised signs in the sun, moon, and stars before the return of the Son of Man. One by one, those signs seem to gather. When we lift our eyes above the crimson waters, the heavens themselves seem unsettled. In recent months, the skies have erupted in colors once confined to the poles. The aurora borealis, normally a treasure of the Arctic, has spilled far south, bathing cities across Europe, Asia, and even parts of the Middle East in curtains of green, violet, and crimson light. Scientists trace it to solar storms, but Scripture gives it another frame. Luke 21:25, which warns of signs in the sun, moon, and stars before the coming of the Son of Man. Could it be that the very skies are rehearsing the final act? And closer to Jerusalem, the mystery deepens. Residents have filmed pulsing lights over the city, hovering without explanation. Some describe them as glowing orbs, others as flashes that vanish as quickly as they appear. On occasion, they are accompanied by low, trumpet-like tones that echo across the night. Atmospheric disturbance, military activity, or something far beyond human design. Whatever the cause, the effect is undeniable. The air feels charged, as though creation itself is holding its breath. It is here, over the land that cradled prophecy, that heaven and earth seem to speak in tandem. First the waters of Galilee, now the skies above Zion. And together they force the question, what are we being prepared for? While the skies blaze with strange lights, the ground in Israel is being prepared for something even more startling. In Jerusalem, the Temple Institute has quietly worked for decades to restore every element of ancient worship. Golden menorahs have been cast, silver trumpets are ready, priestly garments have been woven according to the law. Architectural plans for a new temple sit waiting as if time itself is counting down. And then came the arrival of the perfect red heifer. Scripture in Numbers 19 demands such an animal, spotless and unblemished, for purification before the temple can be restored. For 2 millennia, no such calf could be found. Now, under careful supervision, several live in Israel, meeting every requirement. To some, this is coincidence. To others, it is the unmistakable signal that the pieces of prophecy are falling into place. Archaeologists add their voice. In recent years, discoveries across the land have confirmed names, gates, and altars once dismissed as legend. Each stone whispers that the Bible's history is not myth, but memory. The closer we look, the clearer the pattern becomes. The temple is no longer a story of the past. It is a shadow of the near future. And when it rises, the world will not remain the same. The signs are not only written in water and sky, they are etched into the human heart. The Apostle Paul warned in 2 Timothy 3 that the last days would be marked by a collapse of character. People would love themselves, love money, be proud, arrogant, violent, and disobedient. Look around and the prophecy reads like today's headlines. Violence erupts without warning. Cities fracture under crime. Families strain under rebellion. Wars rage endlessly across continents, and the drumbeat of conflict grows louder along Israel's borders. From Gaza to Lebanon, from Syria to Iran, the threat of war hovers like a storm waiting to break. But prophecy speaks not only of hearts growing cold, it speaks of controlled tightening. In Revelation 13, a system emerges where no one can buy or sell without a mark. Today, digital currencies, biometric IDs, and global tracking systems are no longer concepts on paper. They are tools already in our hands. The framework for such control exists. All that is missing is enforcement. So the signs converge, moral collapse and technological rise, unrest and surveillance, pleasure and power. Science may explain the algae of Galilee, but Scripture explains the soul of this generation. And both seem to say the same thing. The time of comfort is slipping away.
One event can be dismissed. Two may raise an eyebrow. But when the signs multiply and overlap, they form a pattern too precise to ignore. The Sea of Galilee turns red, echoing Exodus and Revelation. The Euphrates dries, just as John foresaw. The earth trembles with greater frequency, as Jesus warned in Matthew 24. The heavens blaze with auroras spilling into lands unaccustomed to their glow, and strange lights hover over Jerusalem. The Temple Institute prepares. Red heifers stand ready, and archaeology proves again that Scripture is rooted in history. Meanwhile, humanity spirals, matching Paul's grim checklist of the last days, while technology builds the machinery of control. Individually, each event could be explained away. Together, they resemble a prophetic tapestry woven thread by thread before our eyes. This is not the imagination of zealots, nor the superstition of the fearful. It is the very convergence Jesus described when he said, "When you see these things, know that it is near, at the doors." Like the fig tree budding, these signs signal a season, the season of his return. The crimson waves of Galilee are not just water colored by algae. They are part of a larger voice, a symphony of signs converging into one message. And that message demands a response. Will we awaken before the trumpet sounds? We began with the lake, quiet under the sun, its waves suddenly stained red. At first it seemed a curiosity, a fleeting wonder for cameras and headlines. But now, after tracing the threads through Scripture and across the world, the meaning feels heavier. This is not just about Galilee. It is about a world in convergence. Waters turning, rivers drying, skies shifting, nations raging, morality collapsing. Each strand alone is striking. Together, they declare that prophecy is not a story of the past, but a script unfolding in real time. The Bible never gave these signs so we could marvel at them from a distance. They were given as a warning, a trumpet blast before the final act. Luke 21:28 calls us to lift up our heads when these things begin to take place, because redemption draws near. The red waters of Galilee may vanish in days, the algae retreating with the wind, but the message lingers. God still speaks through creation, and creation is crying out with urgency. The question is no longer whether the signs exist. They are before our eyes. The question is whether we are living as though they matter. Because if the Lord were to return tonight, the crimson waves would not be the only thing left to stir our hearts. Would you be ready?